Sophocles' Ajax is one of the earliest surviving Greek tragedies, likely written between 450 and 440 BCE. Though not as widely performed or studied as Oedipus Rex or Antigone, Ajax is a powerful exploration of honor, pride, heroism, mental anguish, and the consequences of a rigid warrior ethos. The play examines what happens when a great warrior, whose identity is entirely bound to his reputation, finds himself disgraced and dishonored. Set during the aftermath of the Trojan War, Ajax presents the tragic fall of one of the Greek army's mightiest champions. Sophocles portrays Ajax not merely as a heroic figure, but as a deeply human one, struggling with betrayal, shame, and existential despair. The play critiques the heroic code, the politics of recognition, and the clash between personal honor and communal order. Background context. Before the play begins, Achilles, the greatest of the Greek warriors, has died. His armor, symbol of his heroic legacy, was to be awarded to the next greatest warrior. Both Ajax, son of Telamon and famed for his strength and bravery, and Odysseus, renowned for his intelligence and cunning, lay claim to it. However, the Greek leaders, Agamemnon and Menelaus, award the armor to Odysseus, believing his role in securing Achilles' body and his eloquence in argument make him more deserving. Ajax feels humiliated and betrayed, particularly because he perceives himself as the bravest and most loyal warrior in the Greek army. Act 1. Madness and Shame. The play opens before Ajax's tent near the Greek camp. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, appears and explains to Odysseus that Ajax, enraged by the decision to give Achilles' armor to Odysseus, attempted to take revenge by killing Agamemnon, Menelaus, and Odysseus. However, she intervened by casting a spell of madness over Ajax. In his delusion, he slaughtered cattle, thinking they were his enemies. Odysseus is disturbed but also pities Ajax's fall. Athena, proud of her power, mocks Ajax's mental collapse, illustrating the god's capriciousness and mortals' vulnerability. Inside his tent, Ajax slowly returns to his senses. Realizing what he has done, killing animals and making a fool of himself, he is overwhelmed by shame. He believes his honor is irreparably destroyed, and he can no longer live as a hero. Ajax delivers a powerful monologue, expressing his despair and the impossibility of regaining his dignity. He tells the chorus, his loyal soldiers from Salamis, that he plans to go purify himself and bury his sword. However, his tone and imagery suggest that he is preparing for suicide. Act 2. Suicide and Aftermath. Tecmessa, Ajax's concubine and mother of his child Eurystheus, pleads with him not to take his own life. She recounts his past kindness and begs him to consider their son's future. Ajax momentarily appears persuaded and claims he has resolved not to kill himself. He goes out into the wilderness, ostensibly to bury his sword and perform purification rites. The chorus is relieved, believing Ajax has abandoned his death wish. However, once alone, Ajax delivers his final soliloquy. In it, he affirms his determination to die, seeing suicide as the only honorable escape from disgrace. He plants his sword, given to him by Hector, his Trojan rival, and falls upon it, taking his own life off stage. Tecmessa finds his body and is devastated. The chorus laments his death. His brother Teucer, a fellow warrior, arrives and is grief-stricken. Teucer immediately begins preparations for Ajax's burial. Act 3. Debate over burial. The final act centers on whether Ajax should be buried or left unburied as a traitor, a practice that would doom his soul to wander the earth. Menelaus and then Agamemnon arrive and forbid the burial, arguing that Ajax disrespected the army and attempted murder. Teucer fiercely defends his brother, asserting that despite his flaws, Ajax was still a noble warrior who served the Greeks with unmatched valor. A heated argument ensues about justice, loyalty, and the rights of the dead. Unexpectedly, Odysseus, Ajax's rival and the man who received the armor, arrives and argues in favor of burial. He believes that even an enemy deserves respect in death and praises Ajax's past heroism. His moderation and empathy contrast with the vindictiveness of the commanders. Convinced by Odysseus' reasoning, Agamemnon relents. The play ends with Teucer overseeing Ajax's burial and the chorus offering final reflections on the power of fate, the dangers of excessive pride, and the necessity of compassion. Character analysis. Ajax. Ajax is the central tragic figure of the play, a man of immense physical strength and traditional values, undone by a crisis of honor and identity. For Ajax, heroism is tied to martial valor and recognition. The decision to award Achilles' armor to Odysseus is not simply a political choice. It is a profound betrayal of everything he stands for. Ajax's mental collapse symbolizes the fragility of a value system based solely on external validation and pride. His descent into madness, then remorse, and finally suicide demonstrates the tragic limits of a worldview that cannot accommodate failure or loss. Yet Ajax is not portrayed as merely arrogant. Sophocles gives him dignity and depth. His final soliloquy reveals philosophical contemplation, concern for his legacy, and a belief that death is preferable to dishonor. Odysseus. Odysseus is portrayed sympathetically, despite being Ajax's rival. Though he is the cause of Ajax's humiliation, albeit indirectly, he demonstrates compassion and respect. His willingness to defend Ajax's right to a burial underscores the ethical shift from vengeance to justice and human dignity. Odysseus's role complicates the Homeric image of the clever trickster, presenting him instead as a balanced figure, capable of both strategy and empathy. Tecmessa. Tecmessa is one of the few female characters in Sophoclean tragedy who is given emotional and narrative space. A Trojan woman captured during war, she becomes Ajax's concubine and bears his child. She pleads with Ajax not to kill himself, emphasizing familial love, future legacy, and human connection. Her grief and helplessness after Ajax's death highlight the collateral damage of heroic values. Women and children bear the costs of men's pride and warfare. Teucer. Teucer is a loyal brother, committed to protecting Ajax's honor and ensuring proper funeral rites. His defiance of authority and impassioned defense of Ajax reflect a familial and moral duty that transcends political obedience. He represents the younger generation's attempt to preserve dignity and tradition in a fractured world. Athena. Though a divine figure, Athena appears only at the beginning. Her role is troubling. She takes pride in humiliating Ajax, mocking his madness. Her behavior underscores the capriciousness of the gods and their detachment from mortal suffering. She represents the amoral force of divine justice, where punishment is often disproportionate and detached from human empathy. Themes and analysis. 1. Honor and the heroic code. Ajax is governed by an archaic heroic code, where personal honor and battlefield valor define worth. When his honor is questioned, he sees no alternative but death. Sophocles critiques this rigid code by showing its tragic consequences: mental collapse, suicide, and isolation. The play explores the cost of an honor culture that allows no room for vulnerability, change, or forgiveness. Ajax's downfall is both personal and cultural, a dying form of heroism in a world moving toward diplomacy, reason, and communal values. 2. Madness and human frailty. Ajax's madness is a pivotal element. While Athena claims it is punishment for his hubris, Sophocles portrays it more empathetically, as a psychological break resulting from betrayal and humiliation. The juxtaposition of delusion and lucidity, his insane slaughter of livestock followed by calm, poetic reflections, emphasizes the fragile boundary between sanity and despair. His mental collapse is not divine retribution alone, but also a psychological consequence of toxic masculinity and rigid identity roles. 3. Justice, burial, and the rights of the dead. The debate over Ajax's burial raises questions about justice, revenge, and the ethics of mourning. In denying burial, the Greek leaders attempt to erase and punish Ajax's legacy. But Teucer and Odysseus argue for a more humane, inclusive justice that acknowledges both flaws and virtues. This reflects a transition from archaic to democratic values, from a system of revenge and shame to one of restorative justice and civic responsibility. 4. Divine power versus human autonomy. Athena's presence reminds us of the influence of gods in human affairs, yet the tragedy is primarily human. While divine will shapes events, the characters bear responsibility for their choices. Ajax's suicide is his decision, born of despair, not directly caused by the gods. Sophocles thus invites reflection on the limits of divine justice, portraying it as sometimes cruel, arbitrary, or irrelevant to human suffering. Human autonomy, however flawed, remains central. 5. The role of women in the family. Tecmessa and Eurysaces symbolize domestic bonds and the consequences of male action on the family. Tecmessa's appeals to love and family underscore an alternative set of values: compassion, nurture, and continuity, that stand in opposition to Ajax's heroic ideal of dying with honor. Their presence reminds us that warrior culture neglects the personal, and its victims are often those with the least power. 6. The tragic irony of heroism. Ajax is heroic in the traditional sense, brave, proud, strong, but these very qualities lead to his downfall. The tragic irony lies in the idea that his heroism makes him incapable of surviving failure. Sophocles subverts the mythic hero, showing that the greatest threat to a hero is not an external enemy but the collapse of the internal narrative that sustains his identity. Style and dramatic structure. The play uses choral odes, monologues, and dramatic irony to hide intention. The chorus of Salaminian sailors reflects loyalty, confusion, and emotional response to Ajax's suffering, giving the audience a communal lens. Ajax's two major speeches, before and after his decision to die, are masterpieces of tragic introspection, combining philosophical reflection with emotional rawness. Sophocles maintains unity of time and place, with action unfolding in one day, creating a compressed, intense atmosphere that mirrors Ajax's psychological breakdown. Conclusion. Sophocles' Ajax is a timeless tragedy that explores the human costs of pride, honor, and inflexibility. Through the fall of a great warrior, the play critiques a dying heroic culture and suggests the need for new values: empathy, justice, and communal reconciliation. It portrays suicide not as a release, but as a deeply tragic choice born from despair and cultural rigidity. In Odysseus's compassion and Teucer's devotion, we glimpse a path forward, where human dignity transcends rivalry, and where even the fallen are granted peace. In its unflinching portrayal of psychological torment and ethical complexity, Ajax anticipates modern drama, affirming Sophocles' enduring relevance as a dramatist of human depth and moral ambiguity.